Our client, RPS, has an existing issue tracking system that we've built for them using ASP.NET Core, and we've styled it with Bootstrap. It's called RPS Project Tracker. RPS has recently requested a few updates to this application that'll make it more user-friendly and add some functionality. The new requirements specified a dashboard page that shows a summary of issues as well as visualizations of the data in chart format, all with filtering capabilities. The existing backlog list of items is good, but now it needs to be presented in a grid with sorting and paging capabilities. On the item details page, the form could use a little work to be more user-friendly as well. The drop-down selections should be color-coded and show what is being selected more clearly. And the entire item details page should be a tabbed interface instead of just buttons. We've decided that Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core will fulfill all of RPS's new requirements and ended up using a few of the many available components and features to make this project a success. On the dashboard page, we've added a Kendo chart and a group of Kendo buttons and an assignee selection combo box for filtering the data. On the backlog page, we used a Kendo grid so we can fulfill the paging and sorting requirement. The item details page got a new tabbed interface with all the form controls updated to Kendo, which gave us the ability to easily provide templated dropdowns. To bring that final polish to the application, we used Kendo's themes to enable a theme that matched our existing application for a seamless look. During the next few chapters, we'll go through the process of updating our plain RPS Project Tracker ASP.NET Core application to one that uses Telerik UI and fulfills all the new RPS requirements. Let's take a look at the sample applications we'll be using in this course next. You might want to follow along as we progress through this course, and in order to do that, there are two projects that are available on my GitHub account that you might want to download or clone locally. The first project is RPS Tracker ASP Core, and this is the RPS Tracker application built using ASP.NET Core. This version does not have any Telerik UI in it yet, so this is the starting point of our course. If you want to follow along with what we're doing exactly, you can download this as your starting point too. The second project is RPS Tracker ASP Core _ Kendo. This is the final state of our application, or the goal that we're trying to get to at the completion of this course. This version has all the Telerik UI components, and you can look at it for reference if you run into any trouble. Both of these projects are Visual Studio solutions, and they each have a simulated backend project that's included in the solution. All you need to do is just run the web project. We'll do this in a moment. Now, just a quick note about the projects, for those of you that are trying to skip ahead. You can run the first project right after downloading it and everything will work because there is no dependency on Telerik UI or anything else. But you won't be able to run the second project until we've added the Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core NuGet package to it. So hold off on running that one until we go through the process together. Head over to GitHub and then find this RPS Tracker ASP Core project. We're going to start with this one. Here you have the option to clone or download. Now, I've already downloaded this and placed it on my machine, so all I have to do is open this up in Visual Studio. This is the solution with 3 projects in it, and we're going to be running the rps.web project. This is the ASP.NET Core application. So go ahead and build the solution, and once you see the build succeeded message, you can go ahead and start this in IIS Express. This will go ahead and start up our project, and it should open up your default browser. I'm using Chrome here. The application will start off with a dashboard page. Now all this data you'll see here is simulated and stored in memory while you're running the application. Here you'll be able to navigate the application between the dashboard page and the backlog page. You can add a new item here as well, but keep in mind that if you add a new item and you restart the application, that item will no longer be there because the memory will be emptied, and when the application restarts, you'll have the same set of items that you had when you started out. So that's the first project. Now let's go back to GitHub and find the other project, which is RPS Tracker ASP Core _ Kendo. Also, go ahead and clone or download this project. Now, they're pretty much identical, except this project already has all the Telerik UI core components baked in. All right, go ahead and download this, but in order to run this, there's a few other steps you need to do, and we'll come back to that. But first, let's discuss some installation options, and then we'll come back to running the finished application. In this lesson, we're going to install Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core, and we're going to use the NuGet package approach. When you log into your Telerik account and you find yourself on the account page, You can click on the Downloads link at the top, and this will take you to the Downloads page of all the frameworks. Scroll down a little bit until you get to the Progress Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core, and click on that link. On this page, you'll see the commercial installation package for Windows, and then you'll see some other setup files. And the one we're going to download is this Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core NuGet package right here. So download this file, and also download the Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core commercial zip file. The NuGet package contains the DLLs, and the zip file is going to contain our client-side resources. So download both of these. Once both of these are downloaded, find the files in your downloads folder or wherever you downloaded them to, and copy them. I'm going to copy them to a location where I store my code, and that's in the code folder in the Telerik UI folder. Make sure you remember this path because we're going to need to point Visual Studio to this path for the NuGet package. Now head over to your RPS Tracker ASP Core solution. This is the one that doesn't have Telerik UI installed. Open up the context menu for the solution and head over to Manage NuGet Packages for Solution. And notice that our list of sources doesn't include Telerik UI. We just have the NuGet.org source and the standard Microsoft one. Click on this little cogwheel over here so you can access the settings. And we're going to add a new package source by clicking on this plus button. And then click on this button next to the source field so we can navigate to where we just stored that NuGet package. Go ahead and point to the Telerik UI folder here. Let's give this a name. We'll call it Telerik UI. And the very important step is clicking on this update button. Don't forget to do this. Make sure that Telerik UI is listed in the available package sources here. And then you can click OK. Now if we go to Browse, you can switch your source to Telerik UI. You'll see our Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core listed here. Currently this package is not installed, but we're going to install it right now, and we're going to check only the rps.web project here. So this is the only project that's going to need this package. Go ahead and click Install and wait for the operation to complete. This might take a little bit of time. You can take a look at the output on the bottom to see the progress of the installation. Once this is installed, go ahead and open up the rps.web project and take a look at dependencies. Under NuGet, you'll see the Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core here. And if you open that up, you'll see the kendo.mvc.dll. This is the DLL that's going to provide the server-side implementations for the Telerik UI libraries. Now we're going to need to install the client-side assets, and these are done in a more manual way for ASP.NET Core. Navigate to the code and then Telerik UI folder, or wherever you have your commercial package that you've downloaded, the zip file, and go ahead and unzip it. This one's going to provide our client-side libraries, the JavaScript and the CSS. And there's quite a lot of files in here, so it might take a little bit of time to unzip it. Once this is done unzipping, we're going to want to grab two folders here. This JS folder, let's take a brief look into that. This has all the Kendo UI JavaScript libraries, minified, unminified, and the mapping files. So it's quite large. And also we want to grab this styles folder. This is all the themes and the CSS that come with the Kendo UI libraries. I'm going to take these two folders and I'm going to copy them. And let's go back to our solution. There's this www root folder. I'm going to open that up. And since these are libraries, I'm going to expand this lib folder. We already have jQuery and Bootstrap in here. I'm going to add one more called Kendo. And now I'm going to open this up in the File Explorer, and I'm going to paste those two folders in here. All right, there's the JavaScript and the styles. And now, after a few seconds or so, Visual Studio is going to detect that we've added folders here. If it doesn't do that, you can restart the solution. I'm going to open this up, and you can see that JS and styles have been added here. Anything inside the www root folder, you don't need to manually add to the solution. It'll automatically be included in ASP.NET Core projects. So now we've added the server-side dependencies for the Telerik UI ASP.NET Core and the client-side dependencies. Now that we have our NuGet source configured for Telerik UI, let's go back to our completed Telerik UI application. This is the one that's called RPS Tracker ASP Core _ Kendo. And let's build that project and make sure everything runs. Now we are going to use the NuGet method to install Telerik UI into our project. However, before we do that, I just wanted to take a small detour to show you what other options are available. And specifically, I'm talking about the Visual Studio integration that Telerik UI provides using its extensions, and also the extensions for Visual Studio Code if you're using that environment without the full Visual Studio. One way to obtain the extension is by going into Visual Studio and then heading over to Extensions, Manage Extensions, and then under the Visual Studio Marketplace, you can actually search for Telerik, and then you can type in Core, and this should bring up the progress for Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core extension. Click on Download, and this will go ahead and install that the next time you restart Visual Studio. Another way you can get the same exact extensions is by direct download method. And in your account, go to Downloads, then select Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core. And then you can find the MSI, which is the Windows installer. And you also have the PKG file if you're using Visual Studio for Mac. Once you have the extension installed and you open up your project again, you will have the Telerik menu under Extensions now. And then any kind of Telerik products you have installed, you'll have sub-menus available for that. I did install the Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core in this case, so here's my Core menu. This will allow me to create a brand new project. I'm going to click on that, and this will provide us a few templates that we can use. I can provide a project name. It's going to create a brand new solution, or we can add to an existing solution. I'll create a brand new solution and give it the same name as my project. Let's click Create here. This opens up a new dialog for creating a new project where you can select ASP.NET Core 2.1, 3.1, or 5.0, and then you have the option of selecting HTML or tag helpers for the style of components you want to create. Now, going further here, you can select what type of template you want to create. For example, blank is selected by default here, but you can also scaffold out an application based on a few different common use cases, such as chart or grid razor pages. This will create a small sample application for you, and the grid that's included here will show off the basic CRUD service, which is a pretty common pattern for data updates in a real application. And then you also have a dashboard template, which is going to use a basic dashboard layout and will allow you to customize dashboards and shows several examples of blocks that you can use to fetch data. Now you can also select the library version here. I only have one available, and that's the most current one as of the recording of this course. And when you select that, in order to download it, you're going to need to enter your username and password for your Telerik account. Finally, you'll be able to select a theme to use for your bootstrapped application. Then you can click Finish to scaffold out the application. This application is ready to run, and you can even test it out by running it. This will build and show you a nice dashboard application, which you can use as a sample to start building your own application, or you can use this as a reference. If you are using the Visual Studio Code environment, then you also have the ability to create and scaffold out ASP.NET Core applications using the Telerik UI extension for Visual Studio Code. Let's go to Extensions, and then you can search here for Telerik, and there it is right there. This will allow you to scaffold out brand new applications. I'm going to install this. And once the extension is installed, we can go over here to create a brand new application. You can type in Command P if you're on a Mac or Control P on Windows, then the greater than sign. And then if you start typing Telerik, you'll see Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core Template Wizard Launch. And this provides a nice little wizard to create a new application. I can give it a project name, select the out path, and then click on Next. Here you have some of the same options. You can select whether you have a paid or a trial license. I'm going to select paid. Next. And this is a little bit different because this allows you to select the pages that you want to be included in your application. So I'm going to select a grid. Let's add a page here. And then on the right side, you can manage your app pages. So this is a little bit more potent because this allows you to visually create your application. So you can have multiple pages here. You can add a chart to another page, and you can even add a form to yet another page. And you can have several pages with each one of these components. Give them names like My Grid, and you can even move them around. And then when you're done, you click Next. You can even select a theme here. Now there's the default SaaS theme. There's the Bootstrap themes, material themes. We'll go into theming a little bit later. For now, let's just select Bootstrap, which is going to change all your components all at once. And let's click Create. This will go ahead and scaffold out the application. You can close the wizard at this point and start working on your app. Your entire app is now scaffolded out and ready to go. You can even open this in regular Visual Studio if you desire to do that. So those are some of the options available for you if you want to automate the process of creating a Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core application. But we're going to go through a more manual approach. Now that we've configured the Telerik UI NuGet package source, let's open up the RPS Tracker ASP Core Kendo solution. Now, the NuGet package source was not configured for this solution, so we would need to manage NuGet packages for solution here as well, because our sources don't have the Telerik UI package source here. However, we could configure Visual Studio to save our Telerik UI package source permanently across multiple solutions, and we can do that through the Tools menu, NuGet Package Manager, and then Package Manager Settings. Here we can go to Package Sources and add a package source, and we'll go through the same process we did in the last lesson. I'm going to select the Telerik UI folder here, and then call this Telerik UI, click Update, and then click OK. Now inside my solution, I'm going to browse, and I'm going to browse Telerik UI and install my Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core package into the RPS web project. But as you can see, we don't have the install option available here, and that's because I've set this up previously so that we already have this installed. I'm just going to double check that by going to rps.web and then dependencies and then Telerik UI for ASP.NET Core, and there it is, Kendo MVC DLL. So to get this running, I'm going to clean the solution by right-clicking on the solution name and then clean solution, and then I'm going to right-click on the solution again and go to rebuild solution. Once I get a message that says rebuild all succeeded, I'm going to click on this IIS Express button right here to kick this off. And here's our completed RPS tracker application. Here we are on the dashboard page where we have a chart, and you can filter this chart and the data that's presented here by clicking on the filter buttons up here. And we can even select Assignee right here from the drop-down to filter the chart further. We can go to the backlog page where you'll see a Kendo grid displayed. This grid does have paging. If I go to open items here, you'll see that we'll be able to go from one page to the next or select the page we want to jump to directly. You can also see that this is a responsive grid. If I enlarge my window a little bit, you'll see that the pages are going to be all shown. I'm going to set my window size back to the way it was, and since this is responsive, the pager is collapsed into a selection mode like this. You can control that manually too, by the way. If I go to the details page for one of these items, you'll see that we have a tabbed interface that's also coming from the Kendo UI library, and all these components are also coming from Kendo UI. Here we have a drop-down example with some styled item types. We also have styled priorities here. So our Kendo UI application is working just fine. Let's take a look at the solution structure next. Let's take a moment to review the project structure of our sample application just so that you're familiar with it. Here I have the RPS Tracker ASP Core Kendo solution open, and this has 3 projects in it: Core, Data, and Web. The Core project has our entity models and also our data transfer objects. Here we have classes like PT User and PT Item. These represent the database entities that might be matched up directly with your database structure. The PT Item is an example of the backlog item that we're going to be seeing displayed in our grid, and the items that we're going to be looking at the details and editing. The PT Item has fields like description, estimate, assignee, a list of tasks, the comments, and it inherits from PT Object Base, which has an ID and date created. You'll see many of these fields surfaced on the front end. We also have some DTOs here. These are the data transfer objects, and this is just a convenient way for us to transfer data between the data layer and the web layer without using the actual entities. All right, so that's the core project, and the core project is imported by both the data project and the web project. The RPS data project is a simulation of a layer you might have, a repository layer in a real enterprise project. This will have your repositories, maybe even an ORM connection or context. In our case, we just have some JSON files with the data already pre-populated, and we're simply reading that data into memory when the application runs. And we can access that data through these repositories. The JSON data is included as resources, and it's in this gen data folder. We have a JSON file for the users, and we have a JSON file for the PT items. When the application runs, these JSON files are parsed and then served up by the repositories, which also have the ability to write and read and alter the data while it's in memory. So just keep in mind that our data is all simulated. And finally, the web project. This is a typical ASP.NET Core application that's just been created from the Visual Studio templates. We have a pages folder where all our pages are kept. We're going to be using the shared layout. We're going to be using the view imports. And we've created a separate folder for backlog items and backlog related views and partial views. There are also some included tag helpers that have been created for you. You don't need to know how to create tag helpers, but we'll be using these throughout the course. The models folder has a few helper enums and a PT item grid model, which we'll use later in the grid chapter. The www root folder is an important one, as this has our CSS for the site and individual CSS files for the backlog page, the dashboard page, and the detail page. We've separated these out so that we don't have to load unnecessary CSS for each of those pages. The lib folder has our jQuery dependency, our Bootstrap for styling, and the Kendo UI library that we've added in the previous lesson. We're ready to start using and implementing some Kendo UI components.